Hello, my dear Bayesians. I hope you all are doing really great. I'm Dr. Stuti Agarwal and I welcome you all to a super amazing session in which in each video we are going to take one chapter, quickly revise it and followed by some practice MCQ. And before starting it, I want you to be sure or at least go once again through the regular videos so that you can enjoy this session while revising it, isn't it? So if you're watching this video, I'm sure that by now you'll be thorough with the theory of this particular chapter, the living world. So let's begin our quick revision series and of course the MCQs. But before moving further, there is one small request that try to solve the questions first. So the moment the question flashes on the screen, pause the video and try to recollect all the information that you already have and at least try to attempt the question. It's okay even if the answer is wrong. It's fine. It's initial days of your preparation. So we understand that. It's fine. But just try to attempt it. And if the answer is correct, it will ultimately going to boost you up, isn't it? So try to attempt the questions at least. Okay. Now let's start the revision of chapter the living world, and it is divided basically into two parts. So this video will have the introduction part and the nomenclature, while the second video or the second part will have taxonomical aids and the taxonomical hierarchy. Okay. Now the characteristic features of living. Again, we have discussed about this, that there are going to be certain characteristics of the living organisms which are going to help us identify that this particular organism is living, and we can simply differentiate these organisms from the non-living ones. So what are these characters? First will be the cellular organization, and as we all know that cells will together form tissue. Tissues together will form an organ system, and that is how complete organism. So without cells basically, and we all know that cells are the structural as well as the functional unit of any living object, right? So these cells have got a certain pattern to it and they have a certain way of functioning, and that is what we call the metabolism. So all the functions of the cell, so it's simply like that if there is going to be a cell, it is going to definitely metabolize something in one or the other way, right? And this metabolism could be of any type. It could be catabolism, anabolism, that means breaking down of the bigger molecules into smaller ones, or it could be building up smaller molecules together to form a bigger one, right? But either ways, the exchange of energy is going to be evident, and that is how you say that okay, this cell is alive. It is showing some or the other activity. And when we talk about the cells, the activity is usually metabolism, changing the energy one or the other way. Okay. Then the next is growth. Now the cellular growth, the cell and the growth. Now for lower organism, the multiplication of cell itself is a sign of growth. While in some other organisms like us, the multiplication is not always related with the growth, right? So basically we are growing from, let's say if we talk about an embryo, so it is consecutively growing with the age, but after a period of time the growth restricts, right? So do we consider ourselves as non-living? No, exactly, right? So growth is one of those characteristics which are actually present in the living organism, but in the absence of this, we don't consider an organism as non-living. Okay. So in lower organism, please note this down. In lower organisms, cellular division is related or is dependent, or you can say both are dependent on each other, the cellular division and the growth in lower organism, which is a dual characteristics, you can say, right? So, and do not forget that growth is nothing but an increase in number and size of the cell. And of course the size, right? So, but in lower organism, the increase in the number of cells is, you can say, is completely related or dependent on the growth, like that. Okay. Right. The next is the reproduction. Now, similar to growth, And as we have already discussed in the regular video, that growth is something which also occurs in the non-living or objects, like it could be mountains, it could be any other thing on which layer of something is growing on, right? So it is growing in size, for example, mountains, right? So it is going to grow in size. But just because it is growing in size, we cannot consider it as living. And it is exactly same when we say that if this organism is not showing growth, that means he or she is dead, or this object is dead, right? So that is how growth and reproduction, similarly reproduction is also like this. So these are characteristic features, but in the absence of these two characteristics, we do not consider organism as a non-living. Okay, so again, reproduction has got so many examples like mules, it could be sterile working bees, right? So all these organisms cannot reproduce, but they are still living organisms. So you can just relate it like this, that all organisms or all the living organisms can reproduce, but in the absence of reproduction, we don't say that, okay, this organism is now dead. Okay, so both of these are characteristic features of living organism as we are discussing. Then consciousness. So consciousness and cellular structure are basically, and of course the metabolism. So cellular structure, cellular organization or cellular structure, metabolism, and consciousness. Please take a separate note of these 3 points. Now all these are identifying features. That means in the absence of these, we can never claim that this organism is alive. Why exactly? So cellular, let's say we say that cells are the structural and functional unit of an organism. Now the important function and how exactly we know that this cell is alive, its capability to continuously metabolize, isn't it? Or performing one or the other activity. And for cells, the activity is metabolism, isn't it? So in absence of this, for example, this cell is not metabolizing anything. So we can simply consider it as a non-living or a dead cell. And that is how we differentiate between a living cell and a dead cell, right? So all these things are the identifying feature, and these two are the characteristic feature. That means in their absence also, the organism could be living, right? But in the absence of these, identifying as in without these characteristics, we will never consider any object as a living one. I hope you understood, and this is one of the most important thing from where questions can come. Okay, now moving further, the next is the topic actually is the diversity in the living world. Now we have discussed about the biodiversity. We have also seen that in total we have almost 1.7 to 1.8 species living around the globe, and out of these almost 1.5 are animals and 0.5 are plants. In this 1.5 also almost 70 to 75% are insects or the arthropods. Okay, now important thing about the biodiversity, that because there is a huge biodiversity, 1.8 and 1.7 million organisms, can you imagine? So basically this is such a huge diversity that we need to categorize each of these organisms based on maybe certain characteristics or maybe based on just their outer appearance, right? So we have to categorize them. Why exactly? So that it becomes easy to identify them. And why do we need to identify them? So that we can understand their characteristics and find out if these kind of organisms are useful to us or not. Or are they harmful, specifically harmful, as in the case of coronavirus, that we did not know for a long time that it could also harm us, because initially the strains of coronavirus were only infecting birds and bats. So that is how you want to differentiate between different organisms, so that not only you will be safe from the disease causing ones, but also understand that which one or the which type of organism is of our utilization. Okay, so nomenclature deals with the naming of the organism. And this does not work as simple as it sounds. So before naming, you need to understand that why exactly are you naming this organism. So we actually when we talk about nomenclature specifically, we only name an organism based on its certain characteristics. Okay, so for example, we are talking about a bear, right? So how do we exactly classify it as a bear? Or if I show you a list of organisms, how will you identify that this is a bear? Of course, the first thing that you are going to notice is the fur, then the overall build, right? So all these things together make us define that, okay, this is a bear. If we talk about dogs, we know that these dogs are going to bark. They're going to have a tail, a certain pattern of a tail, right? And certain body build or a structure, right? So that is how you basically identify them. So one of the most important pillars in nomenclature is identifying the organism, right? And how do you identify these organisms? Based on their characteristics. Based on their characteristics. Now, these characteristics could be any type of characteristics. It could be morphological, anatomical, or it could be physiological, right? So we need to understand the differences and similarities to name them. Okay. Now, for nomenclature, we have something called as binomial nomenclature. And as the name goes, bi as in two components. So it is going to have two components to it. One is the genus and second is specific epithet. Now, this specific epithet is also the name of the species of an organism. So, for example, if we talk about Homo sapiens, so H, or you can say the Homo part, will be of genus and sapiens is the specific epithet or the species. Okay. Now, you can also take example of Mangifera indica. Now, these examples are very common, but they are being asked constantly in the exams, right? So here Mangifera is your genus and indica as in specific epithet or the species. Okay. Now, next thing is that it's not as easy as it sounds, as I've just mentioned. So we are going to follow certain rules before naming them. You cannot just come up with, let's say, a common name. It could be Golu, it could be Munni, Gudia, not like that. We need to have a proper standardization for naming each of these organisms, because imagine we only have, let's say, if we talk about normal common household names, it could be maximum 20 to 30 names that we can come up with. Now, what about the other 1.7 or 1.5 million organisms out there, right? So it gets difficult and confusing. Even in your class, you must have observed that, let's say, you are in total 50 students, and you must have observed that in your class, there will be at least 2 to 3 Neha, 2 to 3 Pooja, right? Very common names, isn't it? And that is how basically the confusion starts, right? So how do we identify these? Based on, of course, how do they look? The first thing that we can observe. The second thing is that even if we don't know how they look, we can simply distinguish them with the help of their surnames, isn't it? Or the last name. So let's say we can divide them like this. So one is Neha Singh, one is Neha Jain, let's say, right? So that is how you differentiate these based on just their names, even if they are not present in front of you. And the same thing binomial nomenclature does with all the organisms. That, let's say, the dinosaurs, they have extinct, but because of their characterization and that we have named them properly, now we know that which type of organism, or let's say, is there any variety of dinosaur? So how exactly it looked. And that is how the whole Jurassic Park theme happened, isn't it? The movie, isn't it? So that is how things work in the nomenclature. Okay, so rules, very, very important. Please note them down, very important. And each of these are going to form one question. Okay, so the first rule of binomial nomenclature is that the name should be in Latin. It should be Latinized. Okay. Latin is language, and these all words should be italicized. That means it is a font. If you have ever used laptop or computer and you have ever formed or made a PowerPoint presentation, you may have seen that it has got something like this: P, I, like this, and A, right? So this I represents the italic font, right? So that is how name should be in Italian as a language, the Latin language, and it should be italicized whenever written or being typed. Okay, the next thing, whenever we write these or handwritten, the genus will come first and species the next. Right? So we have taken example of Mangifera indica like this, Mangifera indica, right? So we have always placed the genus first, then the species or specific epithet. Okay. The third rule says that whenever handwritten, each of these words should be separately underlined, as I have done here and in the previous slide as well, right? So whenever you are handwriting these, so you make sure that you are placing a underline beneath it. Okay, handwritten, always underline, and separately. Okay, so if you write it like this, it's wrong. We have to separately underline them, as in this and this, like this. Okay, so now moving further, the last rule is basically, it says that author's name should be kept in the last. Okay, so whenever we say, let's say Mangifera indica, so after this you could just write like this, and you have to separately underline all of these. I hope you understood the whole basics, right? So we have already revised half of the chapter in few minutes. Isn't it amazing? Okay, now moving to the classification. Now these two terms are very, very important, taxonomy and systematic. Where taxonomy deals with characterization. Please note this down. These words are very important: characterization, identification, classification, and nomenclature. That means, as we have just discussed, that each of the organism are going to have certain characteristics. So characterize them, then identify them, that okay, this is looking similar to bear, or this is looking similar to dog. So we can consider that okay, this organism might belong to that particular species, genus, or order, or family, isn't it? Then classify them, as I've just mentioned, that you just, after identifying, okay, that this is looking similar to dog, so let's put it in this particular genus, or let's say we can put it in a specific order or a family, right? So that is how, and then properly name it. Once you know that, for example, when we talk about dogs, we know that they belong to Canidae family, right? So, and whenever we talk about dogs, we use the genus Lupus, right? So Lupus could be that categorization, basically, that okay, this belongs to dog, and now this name should start with the Lupus. Why? Because same genus, right? And the species could differ accordingly, right? Now systematics, let's say systematics has got a branch which is actually the taxonomy. So both of these could be really confusing. So try to make a small chart. It's very small thing to remember, but systematic only deals with identification, nomenclature, and classification. We don't need to characterize them, okay? And systematic is also, you can say, a definition of it says that it's the study of evolutionary relationship between or amongst two different organisms. Okay, now moving to the question part or the MCQ part. Now before we start MCQ, I will repeat myself that at least try to attend these questions. Nobody is judging you, you just try it at least, so you will know that how exactly you solve an MCQ. And of course, after, you can just write down the question or just read it once and try to note the answers in your note copy, and then again play the video, so you will know the explanation behind the right answers and why exactly we have eliminated certain options. So let's start the MCQs. So the first question says, a living organism can be exceptionally differentiated from non-living things on the basis of its ability for. Options are reproduction and excretion, growth and movement, responsiveness to touch and temperature, interaction with environment, and progressive evolution. Now, this is a very beginning of your preparation, and we understand that you may or may not have a habit to solve MCQs. So just take it slow, read the question carefully, and I will tell you the small things that you need to take care before attempting any MCQ. Okay, so here in this particular question, you can see that they have put special emphasis on certain words, and now you have to identify these words, and for your, you can say, safety, you just mark them so that there is absolutely no confusion. Okay, so here they have asked you that living organisms can be exceptionally differentiated from non-living things on the basis of their ability, right? So this is the focus of this particular question. Now, if we talk about reproduction and excretion, now the best way to solve any MCQ is, of course, the rule of elimination. And even for eliminating certain options, you need to be sure and have a logical reason that why exactly you are eliminating these options. Okay, so the first option says the reproduction and excretion. Now, from this part only that we have discussed that reproduction is one of those abilities that if the organism is living can perform reproduction. But in the absence of reproduction, we cannot say that this organism is non-living. Why exactly? Because we have so many exceptions like mules, honeybees, the working honeybees, actually worker honeybees, right? So all these will eliminate the option number A, the reproduction. And they have been specifically, the question says specifically that we need a defining characteristic, differentiated, properly differentiated. Okay, now the next is growth and movement, and as we have discussed that growth is increase in number and size of the cell, but there are certain non-living objects also that grow. So our option number B is also eliminated. Now, responsiveness to touch and temperature. So what is exactly the responsiveness to the change in the environment? So let's say, for example, for us humans, so if there is sudden increase in the temperature, we tend to switch on our ACs, we tend to sweat a lot, right? So this is responsiveness to the external environment, and when it's cold we start to shiver, right? So this is responsiveness to the outer environment. So small question, do you think that non-living objects do this too? And meanwhile, when you are thinking about it, let's look at the other option as well, the interaction with environment and progressive evolution. Now this evolution is basically, it cannot be carried out by any organism or a species. So if I ask you to, let's say, I'll just say that you need to evolve. So do you think that this is going to happen? No, exactly, right? So this evolution is not in our hand, or we don't control the evolution, right? So basically option D also is cancelled out, and we left with the only option number C. And this responsiveness to the external environment is known as consciousness. Very, very important. And do you remember we have discussed that consciousness, cellular structure and metabolism is identifying feature or defining properties of living organism, right? Defining or differentiated, right? So in the absence of these, we can never say that this particular organism is non-living. Okay, now moving to the next question, refers the botanical name Triticum aestivum and identify the statement which is correctly describes it. Now in this particular question, they have specifically asked that which option is correct. Now they could have just asked you that from all these options, which is not correct or not true or it's true. So you need to focus on these words and try to mark them so as to just avoid any type of confusion, because there are so many students I've seen that they have such an immense potential, and just by doing these silly and small mistakes, they lose their marks. And do not forget that NEET exam has got minus marking to it. So these options, or you can say these small things, can just change your rank by hundreds and thousands. So try to avoid these mistakes. Okay, now looking at the option number A says that the second word belongs to genus and starts with a small letter. Option B, both the words Triticum aestivum denotes the specific epithet. The first word Triticum denotes the genus which starts with capital letter. the first word triticum denotes the specific epithet, while the second word denotes the genus. Now, talking about the first option, the second word, and in this second word is aestivum. They are asking that is the second word belongs to genus and starts with small letter. So, do you remember that if we talk about the binomial nomenclature, the second word actually represents the specific epithet, right? So, this option is your wrong option. Now, option B, both the words denotes specific epithet. Now, in binomial nomenclature, this never happens. We need to specify the genus as well as the specific epithet, right? So, this option is again wrong. Third option, the first word triticum denotes genus and starts with the capital letter. Now, this could be the right option, but just to make sure that this is the right option, let's take a look at the fourth option as well. So, it says the first word triticum denotes specific epithet, while the second word denotes the genus. So, here we know for sure that binomial nomenclature is such that the first word is always going to be the genus, and it always starts with a capital letter. So, the correct answer is answer number C. So, this is one of the most, again, important thing when you are trying to select certain options. So, always try to cross check it. And as we have just cross checked it, right? So, for example, you come up with this and you will just suddenly jump on the first option you see. But sometimes what happens is that they ask you, or they just show these two options which are really very closely related to each other. And for example, or sometimes you have to choose between two correct options. Now, if here in the option number D, they could have just write it like this. So, the first one, triticum, denotes genus, and let's say the second word, specific epithet, we have already written, and they could have just added, like for example, the first word is genus and the second word is the specific epithet, right? So, if this option have changed a little bit, so the more correct option would be option number D. Why? Because it has mentioned both these things, right? So, in just an example, it's not necessary that these are the questions that are going to come, but just for, you can say, just for the sake of NEET exam, right? So, that is how you have to sometimes choose between two correct options as well. And remember, it's a multiple choice question, but you need to only answer or choose one of them. So, before jumping or concluding any answer, just make sure, just cross check it, okay? Just once, cross check it and then fill your OMR sheet, okay? Now, the next question, which biological name is written correctly? Option A, Apis indica. Option B, Triticum aestivum. Option number C, Felis domesticus, and option D, Mangifera indica. Now, just pause here and try to figure out that which option is correct in this. I'm waiting for you. Okay, so pause the video. I hope by now you have understood the correct option. So, the correct option here is option number B. Why exactly? Why not Apis indica or Felis domesticus or Mangifera indica? All of them sounds good, isn't it? But if we talk about Mangifera indica, so here, do not forget that always the specific or the species actually, or the specific epithet always starts with letter, and here specifically it is capital letter. So that is how this option is wrong. Next is Felis domesticus. Now, what is wrong with this? So, remember, whenever we talk about any type of binomial nomenclature or any name for that matter, remember that it should be always italicized, right? So, this option is also wrong. Then, Triticum aestivum, you can see that it is properly italicized and properly written with the first capital and small letter. But what is difficult, or what is this Apis indica, which was a wrong answer? So, I have actually written it. It's handwritten. And always remember, whenever a nomenclature or the name is handwritten, it should be underlined and individually underlined, right? And that is how this option is wrong and this option is correct. I hope you understood the basic idea behind this, isn't it? Now, moving to the next question. Match the column. Now, it's a very simple trick to solve any match the column. So whenever there are, let's say, these kind of options, try to at least get 2 of them correct, so that it becomes really easy to eliminate options, right? And MCQ is always about only eliminating the option, because if you're going to eliminate options, you will be more sure about what is correct. Not that you have to eliminate all the options. You will of course see these kind of questions where you feel that all of these options that they have given, we can just eliminate all of these. So it's not the case. Sometimes it's maybe lack of knowledge or lack of understanding of the question. Okay, so in the match the column, let's look at the column number 1. So it has got Homo sapiens, Musca domestica, Mangifera indica, and Triticum aestivum. Column number 2 has got dicotyledons, Mammalia, monocotyledons, and insects. Now Homo sapiens, what do you think is the closest thing? So yes, the mammals. So A is connecting with option number 2, right? So in this option, now look for all these options where A is paired with 2. So from my end, I can see that B, C, and D, all of them has got matched A with option number, the column number 2, right? The point number 2. So you can simply eliminate this one, because this is we sure that okay, Homo sapiens are mammals, right? Or the human beings. Then Musca domestica. Now what is Musca domestica? Yes, the what exactly? The mosquito, right? So it is a type of insect. So now look for the options which has got paired B with option number 4. So I can see that B is matched with 4 in option number B, and option number C also have this connection. So we can safely eliminate option number D. Now the next says Mangifera indica. So do you remember Mangifera indica is what type of a plant, what variety? Is it a monocot or a dicot? So do you remember that dicots are those plants which have 2 cotyledons to it? And as far as I remember, the mango belongs to dicotyledons, isn't it? So simply just match it with this Mangifera indica, dicotyledons. Okay, so in these options you can see that option number C has got C matched to 1 in the column number 2. So you can again, if you are very sure about this, you can again eliminate this. So we are only left with the option number C. But just for the sake of confirmation, or just to be sure, let's look at the last option as well. So they have asked about Triticum aestivum, which is nothing but the wheat. Now you can just remember it like this. So mango has a very tall plant, right? It's a tree, not even a plant, right? So all these long and giant plants belongs to dicotyledons. There's hardly an exception, right? And when we talk about wheat, these are going to be small plants, right? And whenever there is a small size plant, they are usually the monocots only. So wheat belongs to monocots. So in this you can see D with 3. So just tick this answer. And why exactly I've asked you to cross check it? Because sometimes you will see that, let's say, if there is any printing mistake or is there any problem with it, right? So try to be always sure and try to recheck the answer once at least, right? Cross checking is one of the most important things, right? Now moving to the next question, which of the following is defining characteristic of living organism? Very simple one-liner question. We have been discussing this since very beginning, that when we say that it's a defining characteristics, in absence of this particular characteristic, you can never say that this organism is living. So look at the options quickly. Growth, ability to make sound, reproduction, response to external stimuli. Now we know for sure that growth is not that option, reproduction could not be the answer, and ability to make sound. Now imagine if I try to tap the table, it is going to create certain sound. So is a table living organism? No, exactly, right? So again, logically, this is also wrong. The only option is a response to the external stimuli, which is nothing but your consciousness. Very, very important question. You can see that even in these so many, you can say, very small number of questions, this question has came up twice. And of course, they have changed the wording a little bit, but the concept remains the same. Okay, so now let's take a look at the last question. The term systematics refers to. Now just pause the video and try to recollect the definition of systematics, right? Now, I hope you are done by now. So let's look at the options. Option A says identification, classification of plants and animals, while option number B says nomenclature and identification of plants and animals. Option number C says diversity of kinds of organism and their relationship. And option number D, different kinds of organisms and their relationship. The classification, sorry. Different kinds of organism and their classification. Now, if you remember, the single word definition of systematics is it's a study of evolutionary relationship between different organisms. So without even thinking, just you can tick the answer as number C, as C. But just to check the other options, we can just go through them really quickly, okay? So the systematics has identification, nomenclature and classification to it. Now, if you look at the option number 1, it says that identification and classification, there is no mention of nomenclature. Then option number B, nomenclature and identification, no classification part, okay? So both of these options could be corrected if all the three components were there, okay? Now, option number D, different kind of organism and their classification. Now, if you will combine option number A, B and D, it could have made a right answer, but they have scattered all these things. So remember, systematics deal with identification, nomenclature and classification, and it's also the study of relationship, evolutionary relationship between different organisms. Okay, I hope you understood the whole concept behind it. So this was all about this particular video. In the next video, we are going to take another part of this chapter, the living world. So I want to congratulate everyone who have guessed all the questions right. And those of you who haven't reached there yet, it's okay. It's your initial time of preparation. It's okay. And you will just, by constant revision and practice, you will, I'm sure that you will reach there. Okay. So with this, we are going to end this session. And in the next video, we are going to discuss about the next topic. So come back again. See you in the next video.